Hello, all. This is Jake Freeze. I just wanted to give a brief introduction about my previous assignment. For my argumentative essay, I decided to focus on a topic that in sports is discussed an awful lot, which is, are athletes overpaid? And I argued for why athletes are overpaid. For this assignment, I'm going to focus specifically on why athletes aren't overpaid. It's a very hard topic because when we look at an athlete, their time span is very short compared to all other people in a career field. It's, for example, the average athlete typically spends about 15 years in his career field. In football, the average athlete spends about 8 years in their career field. The more violent the sport is, tends to be that more guaranteed dollars are given to that sport, specifically football. I mean, if we look at football, one thing that I always like to reference is we had a player that came out into the NFL draft and then a year later retired because he had 2 concussions within that first year, and he just felt that he wasn't willing to sacrifice his life in order for this game. Well, he got paid about $3 million. $3 million is enough that will last him for most of his life. When we look at athletes, we have to understand that an athlete's job compared to everybody else in life is very easily. They've worked very hard to get where they are. But their job in society is not nearly as important as a police officer or a firefighter or a teacher for that matter. And the counter argument to me listing of how an athlete's career field is dangerous would be, well, what about police officers that risk their lives every single day for these people in America? Well, it's a great point because they certainly have a much harder task in society, and they get paid about 800 times less than a lot of these popular athletes, which in my opinion I would certainly agree is a little bit absurd. But the reason that an athlete gets paid that much money has nothing to do with with solely about their career field being dangerous, and everything to do with the fact that we watch the sport. See, because these athletes make money off the TV ratings. For example, a TV company will go to a team and say, we want to list your game. We want to put your games on our station because we know that it's going to be a very highly viewed game. Well, they get put on TV and it goes from there, gets a ton of hits. These athletes make all this money. So as I stated in my argumentative essay, to ask people to not watch, it's extremely unfair because we can't ask people not to watch a sport just because these athletes are, in some people's vision, overpaid. The last point that I want to focus on for why an athlete should be paid correctly is that the amount of work that an athlete has to put in, and I can speak on behalf of myself as an athlete in college, is absurd. These athletes spend oftentimes 10 to 12 hours a day working on their craft, working on their game to try to get them to be the best in the world. It's why they are where they are. So the athlete oftentimes puts in way more work than the common person. I mean, a doctor has to go through a ton of schooling, but they don't really have to practice for 10 to 12 hours before they're actually into their career field. If you guys understand what I'm saying, is that an athlete in basketball will shoot around for 8 hours a day and then they'll have a game later on that evening. It's something that separates the best from guys that are average or maybe even worse. LeBron James spends ridiculous amounts of money on his body, $3 million a year in the off season to be exact. It's pretty absurd. And you get all these other guys that really focus primarily on their games. And so I would agree that an athlete should be paid as much as they do, because they have a very short life in their career field, and oftentimes their career is very dangerous. And I believe that they spend an awful lot of time away from their family, more time than a lot of normal people do. They sacrifice they sacrifice typically 4 or 5 months a year where they're away from their family mostly every day. And that's something that's very big in professional sports. So, again, I would totally agree that I think athletes deserve to be paid. I'm an athlete myself. I think that also college athletes should be paid, because colleges make money off these athletes and they're not even paid. I think that's ridiculous. But that would basically wrap up my argument for why a professional athlete should be paid as much as they are. Thank you.